We've all heard the term generation gap, but what about generation swap? What if we shift the gap narrative to one of honoring the value we offer each other in all stages of life? Not despite our generational differences, but because of them. Join our host, Professor Cindy Camp, as she pairs guests from unlikely places along life's journey, exploring the undeniable value we offer one another. You're listening to part 2 of a 2-part show. To hear part 1, please go to generationswap.com or listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Here at Generation Swap, we recently paired students at Aquinas College in Grand Rapids, Michigan, with mentors from the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, also called Ali, next door to the college, where people 50 and over take classes. There are over 100 Ali programs across the U.S., and while many of us tend to think that mentoring is mostly for the younger person, we found that mentors also gain valuable insights.
I do believe there is a two-way exchange of values and information for both of us that we can apply to our life as we know it now.
At the end of the semester, each student mentor pair did an interview where they talked about risk-taking, personal growth, hopes, fears, and more. Instead of recording these conversations face-to-face as we had planned, we had to finish the semester from home during COVID-19. As you'll hear, the sound quality isn't always ideal, but the conversations are thought-provoking and deeply personal. Thank you for joining us for a very special podcast. When you were growing up, were you encouraged to think deeply about your talents and interests and what you wanted to do with your life?
Growing up, I guess I had a lot of love. I had 3 older sisters, way older, 7, 11, and 14 years older than me. So I had a good, big dose of love and positive self-esteem. And when I was going to school, my dad was never around tools. I went to a Catholic school, never was exposed to shop classes or anything like that. And I met a guy at Ferguson Hospital, Kevin O'Neill, who said, let's paint houses this summer. And I said, Kevin, we don't know anything about that. And he said, we'll learn. He was always, that was his way of doing things. We'll learn. Well, I was always step back. I make something make them go wrong. He would say, if somebody else can do this, we can do it too. And so he was a huge mentor in my life and propelled me to take, not only exposed to tools, but to take risks. It's okay to do that. I grew up in an atmosphere that risk-taking was not encouraged. And so that was my biggest mentor.
I've applied to some places. I've had some interviews that went well, and I've had a couple job offers, but I've turned them down because I don't know, they just didn't seem right for me. I thought they were good, and then as I did more research into it and read more things about this certain company, I realized it wasn't something that I wanted to get into. It was for example, one of them was a financial advising position where I'd have to get all the training and stuff and the certifications, but then it was also I'd have to be getting all my own clients. And it sounded cool at first, but once I thought about it and talked to one of my friends who actually almost had a job like that, and he said, think about it. I'm a 22-year-old kid. It's going to be tough to get people to listen to me on financial advice and get clients. And it kind of made me take a step back and realize, maybe I can do this later down the road, but it's not even something I really want to do. It was just kind of the first opportunity that was put on my plate. So I wanted to accept it, obviously, but I'm holding out for something better, I guess.
I think my parents they have allowed me to be kind of an absolute free thinker when it comes to that. They kind of let me choose, which kind of has become reassuring to myself of ending up in business and wanting to do the exact same thing of going into sales. So it kind of makes me feel okay, this is what I want to do since I was the one who was able to choose it. When I was in high school, I wanted to be a youth minister up until probably my senior year of high school. And then, everything kind of switched and I got scholarships to art school and things like that. And then so I was thinking about going into that, and then I was no, I want to make money. I don't care about that. I can always do that for fun because I was a senior in high school. What's going to drive you? Money. And then so I actually came into college in chemistry, and then so that was a big switch. And then I said, you know, looking back at it, I took this dual enrollment business class my senior year of high school, realized how much I really liked it. And I was like, I'm going to go into that. Like, just because it's so versatile and you can do anything you want with it. And the kind of possibilities are endless. So that's kind of why I decided to switch into that. And then, you know, every year of college, I kind of got like more and more focused in what I wanted to do. And then ended up kind of this year kind of deciding like sales and outside sales, like, you know, I get to, you know, go places and talk, and I don't have to necessarily sit at a desk if I don't want to. Like, you know, the opportunity is kind of all there, and that's kind of why that ended up the way it did.
When I was growing up, there weren't a whole lot of choices for women. It was basically you could be a teacher, you could be a nurse, or you could be a secretary, or you could get married and have children, or you could do a combination of all of those. You know, the encouragement wasn't talked about as far as where my talents, you know, were and how to expand on those. It was basically follow those threads of what women can do and what is accepted in society. I did go attend college, and then I did get married and have children. So yes.
I didn't have any help to get any advice. You know, I was part of the baby boomers, and my high school class had 500 in it with one counselor. They were lucky to tell you what class to take next year, not to give you career help. So when I was in my 30s, and my children were getting in grade school, I decided to go back to work, and that through Women's Resource Center, they did aptitude tests and interest and talent kind of tests, and kind of steered me to get into teaching. And actually, my stepmother was the one who told me I was so bookish, I really should be a teacher. That was about the most help I had.
I'm very much like a free spirit-ish, because my mom has never made me do stuff that I never really wanted to do. And so probably the thing that's probably been the most with that is stories, because my mom is also a bookworm. And so I have grown up with stories, and for all I really know for a career is that I want to be involved in stories in some way, whether that may be eventually writing them or becoming like an editor to help stories come to life.
When I was probably in high school, my uncle, who was a pilot in the Second World War, gave me an airplane ride. And that was a mentoring phase too that we didn't realize, but just being exposed to something was very interesting. And during that nurturing period of growing up, then in through high school, that became very important. And that airplane ride just kind of projected me into something that I wanted for more freedom. And so that was a big thing.
So when I studied abroad, I was 16, and my mom got a lot of backlash from other parents about how you don't love your kids. Like, how could you let them go away? And she was like, it was really hard for her to let us go, but she knew that like by letting go, she was giving us more opportunities, which she did for sure. But just like them always being there to kind of like guide me, but also like let me be my own way.
I think that's great, and that really takes courage to let your daughter go, you know, to Brazil at 16. And I think my mother was a little more cautious. You know, my parents are very supportive, a lot of positive reinforcement. My dad to this day is wonderful with positive reinforcement. You're such a good driver, you know, and all that stuff. And I think that's really good. I remember my mother saying, now think about the time, this is like, you know, the 60s, early 70s. Two good careers for a woman are teaching and nursing. And so I thought, okay, I don't want to be a nurse. I'll be a teacher. I mean, this is the way I thought. And I have a brother and sister that are 10 years younger, and they're twins. And mom now, my sister, and she's an industrial engineer, you know, so the times had changed. But then again, I enjoyed teaching, and I did try other things, you know, the banking and the MBA and all that, and the commodities. And so it, you know, it wasn't like I always stuck to one thing, but I think my parents are really supportive, just in a more reserved way than Macy's.
Yeah, definitely. Well, mine's more of like a modern time because even for me, my sister who's older than me, she studied abroad and it was really taboo. Like she was the first one in our high school of like 1,600 kids to go for like the last, I don't know, 10 years. And people didn't even know you could from the US go. And my parents had like 4 countries that she could say she could go to. So you basically fill out a list of all the countries that you feel comfortable going to. And she had like Spain, France, and like those kind of in Germany, like those types of countries that are super established, like very European. And for me, when I went, because she had such a successful experience, I was like, yeah, my parents told my sister, no Asia, no South America, no East, like none, no Eastern Europe, none of it. And for me, they kind of opened, you know, she pushed the envelope and then I got to kind of open the envelope and have way more options.
I had the opportunity when I was very young to live in Long Island, Babylon, Long Island, and next door to my great aunt and uncle, great grandmother, you know, so I really had this extended family, which I think was very instrumental in kind of shaping, you know, the person that I am today. And my cousin, I guess technically second cousin, because it's my mother's first cousin, you know, Carolyn, she really is somebody, I mean, even to today, probably talk to her once a week, and has been a mentor probably both to me and to my sister. You know, she lives in Manhattan. I used to always joke with her that I wanted to take over her apartment when she was done with it, because she lives in Stuyvesant. That was my dream at one point in my life, was to live downtown Manhattan. But more than that, you know, she always encouraged me to think beyond, you know, back in the 70s when I was a little kid, like, you know, baby, because I was just born, and a toddler. But, you know, but when I was the 70s and 80s, that was a time where women were defined by just certain jobs and certain roles, and it was just on the cusp of the ERA, equal opportunity. And she would always say, you know, you can do whatever you set your mind to, as long as you work hard. And of course, we all know that isn't necessarily true. Like, I never would have ever been a chemical engineer, right? I never would have been a brain surgeon, just because I don't have those aptitudes, right? I never would have been a professional basketball player. I can't jump that high. But, you know, her point was, don't limit yourself to sort of the constructs of the times, and think about where your gifts and talents lie. And
name a value or guiding principle that you live according to, and tell a story that explains why that value is meaningful to you.
I think one of the values that I developed across my lifetime is being a good listener. And that certainly has played a role in all of my career, whether it was when I was doing volunteer management or if I was managing the guest services at the zoo. Just being able to listen to see where people are in their life and be able to give them advice from there has been very important to me, but also with my friends and family. And adaptation, I think, is also a key for me, to be able to adapt to all of the changes that come about. and some that you want and some that you don't necessarily want, but you need to adapt and change and accept them gracefully.
One guiding principle that I would really say that I lead by is vulnerability, because being vulnerable in everything that I do, allowing myself to be true, and allowing myself to take that risk, and and allow to just open up to being able to open up to anyone in any situation. And I think that really helped me out in everything that I've done in my college career, in my life, in my work, meeting new people. It's just something that really inspires myself to be more of like a better person, and it allows people to be comfortable around me as well. And with that saying, that value, that guiding principle allows people to really communicate and just help, like want to help me, and vice versa.
The moral compass in my life is always just to be the responsible one in the group. That's always been my dad role modeled that for me when I was younger, and I had a paper out for 6 years. I had to get up every day and do that, and just it's always just carried over in my teaching career. You're the responsible one. I used to lead trips to the boundary waters in Minnesota, canoe wilderness trips for 10 years. And then all of a sudden, in addition to the adventure, you got the safety issues. And I'm the guy who was responsible for these other 8 people in my group. And so I fed into it. For some people get stressed out over it. I said, this is just the role I've been training for my whole life. And I feel good about keeping people protected.
So name a value or guiding principle. And my very succinct answer there would be the Marine Corps. You've got to be true to yourself. You have to respect and help all the troops that were under your command. And I can't say, and the other real big thing in the Marine Corps was the fact that you never quit. You never quit. You just kept going. You kept going. You'll grouse all the way, but you kept going. I remember reading in one of the letters I sent my folks when I was going through officer candidate school, that we had a forced march. I think it was 6 or 7 miles with backpacks. You got 40 pounds on your back, and I think about 20 or 25% of the guys dropped out. They couldn't hack it. And I wasn't going to let that happen. So it's things like that. It's like a building block. It's not all of a sudden, boom, everything's in order. But the biggest growth factor I had was the Marine Corps. No question about it. I bitched and moaned and complained for 2 years, 8 months, and 5 days. But in retrospect, it was the best thing I did.
I would kind of say loyalty, especially just to family and close friends, just because, they've all done so much to kind of help me through childhood and kind of grow up into, an adult almost, we'll say. And then, so kind of I feel like my job is to kind of do the same for them and kind of give back no matter what it is, not necessarily like helping them grow up. Because, a lot of these people have literally helped define me as a person. So my job is to be as loyal as I can to those people who've been there for so many years, just to kind of help give back in any way that I can.
I really have valued hard work, maybe too much. It's good to have a balance in your life, but my father worked really hard and my mom worked really hard, and that was just kind of a thing that was planted in me, that if you're going to be successful and use your abilities, you got to follow through on things. And I have I was kind of driven. I had two majors in college, a teaching certificate, and it was like I had a go and accomplish all these things. And I think that's important, but you also need the time with people too. Yeah. And my dad worked for Westinghouse, and he would fly out on Sunday and fly back on Friday from traveling all over the world. So, he was very committed to being successful in his career. At the very end of his career, he did write me a letter and say how much he regretted, he was moved a lot and moved us around a lot, and how he regretted not being more involved with people, not having roots. So, that kind of stuck with me too, that I'm good. I cling close to my friends, that they're an important part of my life,
I would say a guiding principle for me would be honesty. A specific instance was when I was sneaking out in high school to go up to a bonfire with all my friends, and instead of I knew my parents would be mad because this was like the first time like they caught me doing like anything bad, and like instead of trying to like lie and come up with a spot of where I was going and what I was going to do, I told them like truthfully what I was going to go do, and then I ended up not getting in any trouble, or not any trouble. They were still like a lot less trouble than what would have happened if I would have lied and come up with some fabricated story.
I think the one guiding principle that I've come up with, through my whole life, and it's good now, I'm just now becoming aware of it, is an increase in compassion. And I just see so many things going on around the world that is just very difficult for me to handle from a standpoint of justice and that kind of stuff. And as a white person, you're privileged, and I'm finding that a statement like "I can only imagine what you're going through" it doesn't hold much water when you're privileged and you think of it through privilege. And so I've come up with this value of feeling of compassion that I'm really important. It's important to me, particularly the area, for example, children at the border, or those kinds of issues are just it's compassion is really part of my life now.
So for me, it would be open-mindedness, just because, always say yes, always go to your experiences, and just keep jumping into risks, which I mean, to a point, know when it's a good risk, know when it's a bad risk, but just not being afraid.
Is there something you've learned about life that you wish you'd known when you were 20?
One of the things that I wish I would have known, and I think nowadays you have a lot more tools that you could utilize easily than I did. I mean, is the importance of maintaining, building networks, right? So you meet a lot of people along the way. And nowadays there are ways that you could link in with them. You don't have to lose a business card. When I was growing up, there wasn't that sort of technology, right? There wasn't a phone that you could put someone's contact information in. You had business cards, and then what you did with those business cards after a while, who knows? And I think, for me is maintaining and building and those relationships, because it's not a transactional thing. I'm sure, Nick, you've learned this with the work that you did at the insurance, or just in life. It's not. Relationships, networking are not transactional. They are give and take. So, you can't contact somebody that you've lost contact with and just be like, hey, I need something from you, right? You need to have been there for them along the way, and sort of, at least in a little bit, like whether it's just even checking in and saying, how are you doing? How are things going? Now I have a pretty extensive Christmas card list. We send a lot of Christmas cards, actual legit Christmas cards, in the mail. I think we send 250 every year. I know that sounds crazy, but I'd rather send my Christmas cards than even put up a tree, because to me, that is an opportunity, if not any other time of the year, that I connect with college friends that we haven't connected with for a while, or family that is, second cousins, distant family that we don't talk to all the time, or just those are just kind of the things that I say are important to me. So that's something I learned along the way.
if you do your preparation, do your homework, and get ready to go, your success rate is going to be a lot better. I think that someone said that luck happens when preparation meets opportunity, and I found that true in everything I've done, especially in the practice of law. You're dealing with a lot of bright people in the room, and so if you're going to get ahead of people, you better be better prepared, and you better stick to it and know what you're doing, know what the facts are, be prepared to apply the law to the facts, and be able to argue your position. So I think that persistence and perseverance are pretty important to being successful. What is it that I didn't understand then that has become pretty important to me, and that is the value of family. When I was 20 years old, I was kind of focused on me. I was probably pretty self-centered. Don't talk to my friends about that, but and I was concerned about what was my career going to be, how I was doing, where I was going, and I didn't focus on the fact that when you get out into a career, then once you have a family, you need to try to balance the demands and challenges of your career with the demands, challenges, and joys of having a family. I had no idea how much fun it would be to have children, or to see them grow up and be able to participate in what they were doing, go to my daughter's plays when she was in the plays, or my son's tennis matches, or the other things they were doing. I had no idea when I was 20 years old that I'd find that as rewarding as I have.
But I've realized, when you meet somebody and work with somebody, you start judging them a certain way without knowing their story, their backstory, and all the events that took them to this point in life. And I've come to realize everybody has a story. And until we take the time to hear the story from people, we can't truly understand where they're coming from. And so then we end up judging them, and we'll almost always judge them wrong, because there's, you think somebody is being a jerk, and they're not being a jerk. It's a reaction to something that happened years ago. So that's the biggest advice I would have. I wish I had known back then.
Looking back, I should have put more effort into formal education. My wife claims that I take a lot of classes over at Ollie, and she said I've gone to more school there and learned more in a couple years there than I did in 4 years in college and 8 years or 12 years in grade school and high school. So I was kind of a lazy student back then, and I just wish that I had applied myself better. And I guess I'm making up for it now, because the beauty of education, it just opens up everything for you. The world is just different when you can understand what's going on in certain areas. I just wish I'd applied myself more and put more effort into it, but can't go back, can I?
And I think some of it is the difference between the way society was when I was growing up and what it is now. But also throughout my life, I've realized that we need to promote that old Rosie the Riveter adage of, you can do it, yes, you can. And, don't let roadblocks get in your way. Find a way to get around them if there's something that you really want to do. And I admire Soila for going back to school with 3 young children, balancing a job. It has to be incredibly creative to split her time like that. So I think she has learned that at a much younger age than I have. So I think that's my comment on wanting to learn something or pass something on. I think there is definitely a gender gap with income disparity, and things like that. And I think women just have a little bit harder time trying to get to their goals. So that's definitely something we need to pay attention to. And as women, try to change for those that are following in our footsteps.
I used to think that people were all one way, you know, either really, you know, just completely bad or completely good. And nobody is one way. And the more you learn about people, you realize, well, they really have these good qualities I didn't even know about before. So and also to, I guess, to stop being so judgmental about people, because I'm thinking about this in the back of my mind all the time, you know, and to be more accepting and to try to realize what other people are going through.
There was a phrase that I heard once that said, you know, the key to success is not dodging every bullet, but being able to recover quickly. And I do think that it is about kind of your grit and your perseverance and your adaptability. And you're seeing this now with the pandemic and COVID-19 and those individuals that are kind of pivoting and saying, okay, this is happening. This isn't going away. What can I do? How can I keep moving forward?
What are you most concerned about and most hopeful about as you think about the future?
Like what will happen with my future? Will I be successful? I'd like to hope that I'll be successful. I always strive to be better than I already am. And like Larry said earlier, the perseverance, I think that's a great thing to apply to life. You learn from your mistakes, and you figure out how to better yourself through your past experiences.
My fear is that my generation has not left future generations in very good shape in terms of the way we're handling our economy and the federal deficit. I was just appalled when we had a full employment economy. We had $1 trillion deficit last year. I thought that's immoral. It's just unforgivable. We're doing that to our grandchildren. And then this year, it's worse. We're going to add to that. So that's a big concern. Is that I'm afraid that we're saddling our next generations with a lot of debt that we never should have done. We should have been more responsible. We should have stepped up and said we're going to pay for this. So that's my biggest worry. But my biggest hope is that I see the younger generations, the young lawyers in our firm that my son works with and I worked with. They're really bright, energetic, active people. And I meet people like James that are stepping into this void right now. And I'm very encouraged by what I see. I think we've got a wonderful class of young people coming up and taking over, going to step into leadership roles and start doing things. And I hope they'll do things better than we did.
Also, I'm concerned about I'm getting job offers and everything, but I'm still concerned about finding a job that suits me and, you know, taking a job on. I'm just kind of worried about what if I get there, you know, what if I hate it? What if I'm just absolutely miserable and want to quit? Or, you know, what if it's not everything it's cracked up to be? And it's kind of just something that's always been on my mind.
I definitely would say that I'm hopeful just because, you know, it's really just the beginning. Like, you know, I'm about to enter the first year of my life where I haven't had, you know, formal schooling, you know, like that I could remember rather. But so like kind of the possibilities are endless. Like, so that's kind of really reassuring. Like I could do anything I really wanted to, you know, whether or not, you know, that's going to work out or whether or not it's going to be worth it. But, you know, the experiences that are to come are going to be so valuable for the rest of my life. So that's something I'm definitely really hopeful for. But, you know, as for kind of things I'm unsure about, you know, like I'm going into a very unstable market at the moment, you know, graduating in hopefully a week. You know, so like everything that I just mentioned about being hopeful is kind of up in the air. So, I mean, it's give and take, but, it's going to give me a lot of time to figure out, what's going to work for me or kind of plan things out. So I think that it's definitely going to be a stressful time coming up, but I think it's going to be something that I can look back on, kind of as you were saying, Dana, like it's going to be something to look back on and be able to like say like, you worked through this, or tell people like, this. But I think it's definitely going to be in the long run, something that's going to be able to help. So
The one regret that I have for my generation, the baby boomers, is that we're handing off some real challenges to the next generation. Somehow we've got to wake up and do something about the climate. We can't just keep doing what we've been doing. And I know the national debt is going out of sight right now, but and we have to spend that money now, but we've got to do something to corral that. And if we can do that, life is going to be good.
I would say what I'm most concerned about right now is getting through the semester and moving on to a career that I can say like, hey, I'm passionate about. I mean, this whole class, work, purpose, and leadership, we've talked about, finding a job, purposeful job. And so I think that has really, really been stuck behind my head. Like, I'm almost done here and I can't believe it. Like, this is what I never thought I'd be able to do. And now that I'm closer to graduating, it's almost like a concern, like, hey, my identity is being a student. My identity is being that person that's always busy and, and always has something to do to distract her from anything else. Now what? So being concerned about the next step of my future, the next journey. What I'm most hopeful for is just finding a job that I can be happy and make a difference. I know we had talked about with any job, you make a difference, regardless, whatever the career is, whatever you graduate with, we all make a difference. And so I guess that goes hand in hand, the concern and hope of just graduating and being able to help other people.
I think the thing that I'm most concerned about right now is the condition of our environment, and to make sure that it's sustainable for generations to come. And I think the silver lining that I see with this coronavirus is that we're seeing some of our natural habitats come back and be viable again with just this short time that man hasn't been out there polluting. Or, for instance, there are dolphins coming back into the canals in Venice, and they hadn't been there for years and years because of the boat traffic and the pollution. Also in LA, you can see the sun and the sky and the tops of the buildings. And I think that is really encouraging. And hopefully we can take a step back and realize that we need to do some of these things, maybe not as drastically as we're doing them right now, but that nature will recover if we give her a chance.
Probably what I'm most concerned about, tying in what you said before, would probably be tuition again and such, getting like scholarships, doing well in school, and then eventually whatever career path I'm going to take, because I do not know. But I'm a freshman, so I still have several years to figure it out.
Well, I guess at my age, I worry about staying healthy. Be able to stay healthy and to stay active, and that also is the hope that I can get back to. I usually do in the summertime jazz concerts and the Meyer Garden concerts and plays, and it's like everything's kind of on stop right now. So I'm hoping that comes back.
Well, one of the things that I'm concerned about is world issues, really more than personal things at this point. And for example, fascism is just in this country has got me very, very concerned. And the list goes on. There's the public education. There is destruction of the environment. There's just so many things I'm concerned about in that area. On the other hand, it's frustrating because of the human potential is so incredible when I think of what's possible, particularly also in the leadership of women. And there's a wonderful comparison between the president of New Zealand and our president, and it just shows you what leadership is, how it can change, and how it's really important. So I think the other thing is diversity. I mean, if we can appreciate the diversity in the world, man, oh man, I think we could just do so many wonderful things. So anyway, that's kind of the good and bad.
Yeah. And for me, I think I'm probably just most concerned about, obviously everything's changed in the job market. Like everyone's worried about it. And so for someone like me who's just entering it and like had opportunities, those opportunities are ending and like I have to find more. And I think I'm just the most hopeful that people will, this is also the time that we can get creative and create new opportunities. So like maybe this is a good chance to really like work on my Google Analytics skills, and like maybe that's where the job future is at. It's just more online and just being able to, for me, watching the industry change.
I'm most concerned about my generation. Not necessarily, when I say my generation, I don't mean that people, aren't going to have jobs or anything like that, but my generation's kind of been caught up in that stigma where, they don't want to work. And, I feel like that honestly is true. And I have a lot of friends that, they don't like to work. And then I look at generations before us that, you guys work so hard and you guys have worked hard your whole life and it's all you know. And, that's what scares me is that it's going to get to the point where, there's going to be jobs. There's always going to be jobs, whatever. But I don't want to be a part of a generation that, is known like that. I want to be part of a generation that works hard and they're great people and they help the environment and they gave back to the world and, they cured cancer or something like that. And I just feel like our generation hasn't been fortunate enough with parenting and especially like experiences like through internships and stuff like that, because kids have changed so much due to technology that their face-to-face communications and their phone interactions are so much different than how it would be back in the day. And that's what scares me. I feel like we're going to lose communication, even though we're getting more communication assets. I feel like kids they don't know how to talk to people anymore. Like I have friends that if they were told to email you guys right now and ask for some kind of help, a referral or something, they'd just say, hey, give me this, please. Thank you. Nick sent me. It's versus saying, hi, good morning. Hi, good afternoon. I hope you guys are all well. All this, like just the simple things that our generation doesn't have is what scares the heck out of me.
Do you have any closing thoughts?
It's been wonderful being in this class, though, having the chances to talk to mentors and other companies, all the interviews we've had throughout the class. I think they've been very helpful, and everyone I've connected with throughout this class has helped me more than I thought. Trying to get a job and finishing college. I think without that, with this, I'd be better off because I'm getting all the help from all the teachers, all the mentors, even just that meal we had when we were meeting with the mentors. I think I got like 2 or 3 other numbers that I've been talking to every once in a while.
Well, I do have one thing. I thought the class was extremely interesting, and I was very happy to be back in a university setting again, in a college classroom, to see them and to listen to the speakers do their thoughtful presentations. And I thought one of the reoccurring themes that came through everybody's speeches was to accept opportunity. And you may not know it's an opportunity, but if you see one, if you see an action in another direction, at least give it a chance. And also to make a change if it's necessary, make your own opportunity. But I thought the class was very good, and I was really pleased to be able to be a part of it. Thank you.
Well, I've certainly enjoyed the process and enjoyed getting to know Tyler. So I was really pleased with it. I was going to tell you a little story though. I've been going for a walk in the woods across from my house. And a few weeks ago, I ran into a man in a motorized wheelchair, and he was just stopped in the middle of the sidewalk. And I said to him, is there a problem? I mean, has your battery died? Can I help? And he was like, oh no, I'm just sitting here enjoying the beauty of the day. I was so touched. I thought, savor, appreciate what we have. I guess even the silence was a beautiful thing for him and a beautiful message for me.
I just want to wish Macy well, and I think I have complete confidence in her. I think that you will find a job you like, and it may not be this summer, but you don't, in this time, you don't stay with a job. People don't stay with jobs that long. I mean, my dad was with his job for like 35, 40 years, the University of Chicago, but that's not happening, so you'll have many jobs and you'll find your way. And I have complete confidence that you will.
Thanks. And that's just kind of, I wanted to thank you for kind of taking the time and helping me see new perspectives. And I hope that you understand that you're a good mentor and you do have things to offer, and not take your experiences for granted, because you've done a lot more than I think you realize you've done. And like, I've just been able to kind of hear your experiences, and, it's just interesting. And as far as class, I think that we should have the mentors in class more and just maybe let them sit in and like hear more of the opportunities and the, just more a part of it. Cause I think that could be fun to do those activities that we did. It could be fun for them too.
This was really fun.
Colin, you and I got to play golf. We talked about that. So you're probably not at work yet at Cascade, but
yeah, no.
I'll get you as soon as
I'm looking forward to it.
Get a little more normal.
Yeah, hopefully this swing can have some time to practice a little bit before I get out there.
Yeah.
It's looking bad right now.
Yeah. Oh, well, good for me. I'll take money from you.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you to all three of you. I mean, I know this has been kind of like a tester class. We're kind of the guinea pigs, but I think it's added some tremendous value, and I hope they really keep going with it, for semesters and years to come. And I hope you two are the ones teaching it, because you guys have some really cool connections, and we've done some really cool field trips. And I mean, connecting us with the Ollie mentors and things like that, that's been really awesome. And, thank you to John as well, because you've given me a lot just from the one time we've been able to meet. And even this is really cool that you agreed to do, and just kind of talking in the back and forth. So thank you to all three of you. This has been awesome.
You got a great future in front of you.
Thank you.
Our thanks go out to our delightful group of mentors: John Benz, Amber Holst, Dave Campschulte, Sue Miller, Richard Schwalier, Larry Titley, and Karen Waterbury, and to our dedicated students: Nick Brzezinski, Colin DeVries, Kyle Gauthier, Suela Lang, Lucas Larson, Macy McGowan, Tyler Meyer, and James Swanton. Special thanks to co-instructor Dana Hebriard for also serving as a mentor.
There are endless listening options out there. Thank you for tuning into our unique podcasting space. It would mean so much if you would subscribe, rate, and review Generation Swap. You can also visit our website at generationswap.com. Our show is produced by Sean O'Milia. The technical manager is Cassie Benton. The marketing coordinator is Gwen Vogelzang. And our host is Cindy Camp. We're looking forward to swapping intergenerational stories with you again next week.